Hi, I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig, and Callie and I are currently hanging out down here in Baja, Mexico. We recently completed a loop around Central America, and one of our favorite items that we've added to the 890 as well as the 790 for this trip have been these rally towers. Now, these are made by Nomad ADV out of Holland, and we have been so impressed by everything that these towers have to offer. Now, we added these for a couple different reasons. One, we didn't necessarily love the stock styling of the front end on the KTM Adventure, so this kind of took care of that problem. We really like the look now. Also, we wanted some different options for headlights. We wanted aftermarket lights that were a lot brighter, but we didn't necessarily want big lights hanging off the side of the bikes. We tend to drop these a lot. We've broken those lights in the past. These ones are nicely protected and tucked up inside of this windscreen, and we're getting that aftermarket light option. Also, we've added a Garmin GPS, and yes, with the stock unit, you can add a GPS there. They have a mount for it, but if you're doing like a RAM mount or something, there's a lot of movement there, and the GPS does a lot of vibrating. So with the mount that Nomad ADV has, it's extremely sturdy, nothing vibrates, nothing moves. Also, there's a ton of different options on here for extra accessory plugs as well as switches. So if you want to wire in things that you want to turn on and off, you can wire in switches with that. So it kind of gives us a lot of different options, everything that we were looking for. There are a lot of things to talk about on these towers. I don't want this to be a 20-minute video, but I want to touch on the things that I think are important and maybe you as a viewer would find helpful. So let's talk about the install to begin with. On Nomad's website, they do offer instructions, thankfully, on how to install these towers. And they're pretty thorough instructions. Callie and I found that probably about 80% of them were very good. We knew exactly what they were talking about. However, there's a little bit of room for improvement there. There's some things like photos. They reference photos, and the photos are all kind of in a little bit of a collage on 2 or 3 pages at the back of the instruction manual. So when they are referencing photos, you kind of have to go through this collage of a bunch of different photos, trying to figure out exactly what they're talking about. I didn't love it, and it added just a little bit of time into the process of installing a tower. Also, there were a couple times where they referenced something saying, when you install this, make sure it's aligned. And specifically, this was for the brace that this entire rally tower connects to. It's pretty much the first thing that you put on. I didn't really understand what they were talking about when they said make sure it's aligned. And what they're referencing is that make sure it's aligned with the front of the bike, because what we found out is if it's off just a little bit, when you put this all on here, everything is cocked off to one side or the other if that is not perfectly aligned. So what they mean with that is make sure that this is aligned with the front of the bike so that when everything goes together, it's all directly centered over the front of the bike and nothing is off to one side or the other. Had that been mentioned, I would have known exactly what they were talking about. It just would have been a little more clear. There are a few instances like that where I thought that some things were not as clear as they could be, but this probably varies from person to person. Maybe I'm just not that understanding. What I honestly would love is to have an install video on how to actually put this on. I think that would clear up every single thing out there, and it would be great to watch a video, see exactly how to do it, and then go through the install and do it on your own. This can be done in probably what I would say a day, day and a half. That's me. I work pretty slow. I'm a little bit, Callie says I'm OCD, and that's probably true. This took 3 days to do. However, with that said, the biggest thing, probably the most time-consuming part for us were these headlights. So these are Baja Designs headlights, and they offer either these or the Vision X headlights. The problem with these is that they're extremely bright. So I wired in a Skeen dimmer switch. Normally what would happen is that Nomad ADV provides everything to be plug and play. So you literally can plug these headlights into their harness and everything works. It takes 5 seconds. However, once you start cutting all of the plugs off and you start doing a ton of rewiring, that adds a lot of time. And for me, it added about a day. but again, I do not work quickly and I take my time. Since we're talking about the headlights, I am going to mention this. Again, these are Baja Design Squadrons. They also offer the Vision X's. I went with these because brighter's better, right? Well, that's probably usually the case. However, if you're blinding oncoming drivers, brighter is not always better. And that's kind of what we found with these. So at night when these are on, I have them dimmed to 20%, and I wired in both the bottom and the top light, so both the driving pattern as well as a spot pattern. Both of those come on at 20%. When the brights come on, they go to 100%. And the issue with these lights is that there's not any kind of a beam pattern to them. So if you were to pull up against a wall in your car, you would literally see a flat line kind of across the top of the beams where there's light and then there's dark. This is so that you don't blind oncoming drivers with your lights and everything is below them. With these, they don't have that. So if you were to pull up to a wall, it basically illuminates the entire wall, top to bottom. So even though these are dim, they still get into the eyes of drivers, and we usually find maybe 1 out of 5 drivers maybe flash us at night because the lights are so bright. If I was to do it over again, this would be my recommendation. If you find that you are riding at night in the city and you're doing that a lot, I would probably go with the Vision X lights that are not going to be as bright, and they probably will not be blinding drivers because they have somewhat of a beam pattern to them. If you truly want the brightest that's out there and you do most of your riding off-road and maybe you're not riding in the city or through towns at night a lot, then I think these work great and I love them. Like I said, we rode all the way through Central America with these, mostly on paved roads. I mean, most of that trip was touring. And we did it just fine with these. However, at night, well, we didn't really want to ride at night, but the times that we found ourselves caught in the dark, we did have drivers flashing us. Not everyone, but definitely some of them. And we knew, sitting behind these lights, that they're really bright and that we probably are kind of pissing off a lot of drivers. So that's what I would say there. That would be my own personal recommendation for it. Next, let's talk about the fit and finish. These kits come in at about $1,600 after you add in the aftermarket GPS mount. So they're not cheap. However, they're not the most expensive either. There are kits out there that are double the price. This is one of the reasons we chose these, because we felt like they were not terribly expensive and they were still within our budget. But with that said, that's still a ton of money, and you'd expect everything to be top-notch, which it is with the Nomad ADV Rally Towers. All of the hardware is stainless steel. 90% of it is T30, which this bike comes with a toolkit and it includes a T30 in there. There are a handful of bolts that were T40, and again, the bike's toolkit, the stock toolkit, comes with that as well. So you can work on this with that stock toolkit. All of the pieces are aluminum. It's all CNC machined. There aren't any sharp edges. Everything is a nice powder coated black. I expect this to last for a very long time. All of the hardware is included with the kit. There are a couple extra things though that you will want. One being thread locker. So we put blue thread locker on all of the bolts prior to installing them so that nothing would back out. Also, the wiring that is coming out of the rally tower on both sides, that should be wrapped in something, and they recommend wrapping it in cloth tape. I'd actually never dealt with cloth tape, but by the end of this project, it's my new best friend. I absolutely love it. I'm going to start using it on a ton of things. But we found this at our local Ace hardware store. You probably can find it at a Lowe's and probably auto parts stores, I'm guessing. All you do with it is wrap the stock wiring that's coming out of the tower so that it doesn't chafe on things and eventually wear through it. It's really awesome stuff, and I'm glad that they recommend it. Just one thing, they don't include it with the kit. A problem with the stock headlight assembly is how it bolts onto the frame of the motorcycle, and the welds there are known to eventually fail. With the Nomad ADV Rally Tower, they actually attach it to the motorcycle differently, and its main attachment point goes around the entire frame of the motorcycle and then back to the rally tower, and it's all bolted in really nice and tight, and it's big, robust. And then As a failsafe, they still use the stock mounting locations, but really those don't do anything to hold this onto the motorcycle. There are zero chances that this is going to break those stock mounting points that are known to be weak. Once it's together, in my opinion, it looks like a piece of artwork. It is very nicely done. Everything fits well. There's no gaps between anything. You're not bending anything. There's nothing like that. There's no cutting. There's no drilling. It literally just all bolts on there and together, which is great because I have all the tools to do that. The windscreen that they provide with the kit, this is actually just a KTM part. This is something that you could go to a KTM dealer and order if you ever had a problem with it. One thing that I don't love about it is it seems to scratch extremely easily. So right now you can see that we do have quite a bit of dirt on both the front and the back, as well as a few bugs on there. When we'd stopped for fuel after like 4,000 miles, I ended up cleaning mine a little bit with a microfiber towel and water, and I literally scratched the hell out of this windscreen like that. I looked at my towel, I didn't have sand in it, but literally just sitting there and trying to rub bugs off will scratch the windscreen. That's kind of my big complaint on the windscreen. It's probably something that you should be careful with. However, this is an off-road bike. It's definitely going to get scratched. Now on mine, you can see that the side of my windscreen is still clear. I don't have any stickers there. On Callie's, she applied the Nomad ADV sticker on hers. I personally didn't like the look of it, so I left it off on mine. But their side fairing that they have here, this is just a piece of aluminum that's been powder coated black, and if you opt for the sticker kit, they'll send you the stickers and you can wrap that, and it kind of just ties the whole bike together nicely. With this windscreen, I found that I still had wind buffeting coming off of it. It's unfortunate because that's kind of a main issue that a lot of people complain about with the stock front end. I thought this would take care of that. However, at 70 miles an hour, with how tall I am and the helmet that I'm wearing, it's just a Climb Cryos, has a visor on it, I found that I was getting plenty of buffeting coming off of this. Now Callie, she sits a little bit lower. She's a little bit shorter. Her torso is also shorter. So sitting down just a couple inches, she was not experiencing quite as much buffeting as I was. I'm 6 feet tall and sitting up, like I said, just a little bit taller. However, I did 6,000 miles through Central America with this, and all of that was pretty much pavement. It wasn't the end of the world, but going fast, you definitely notice it. If you're looking to purchase this kit just to take care of the wind buffeting, I'd probably say you're not going to be happy with it because you still are going to experience some buffeting. One thing that we would like to add, you can see that we still have our stock blinkers. We'd like to do an aftermarket blinker. We didn't have an option for that prior to leaving for Central America. We ran out of time, but in the future, we'd like to do something else there, maybe from Cyclops ADV. They make some nice blinkers. So we'll see what the future holds, but right now, we do just have the stock blinkers on there. Another downside to this kit, besides the fact that there is still some wind buffeting, is that it does add quite a bit of weight over the stock unit. Now, the stock one's just a bunch of plastic that's probably not going to withstand a ton of abuse if it's falling on rocks and stuff. So I knew it was going to be a little bit heavier, but it is quite a bit heavier. All of the hardware being a stainless steel weighs a lot, and then there's just a lot of aluminum making up this kit. How the lights mount, how the GPS bracket mounts, it's all extremely sturdy, and it's not going to wear out and things aren't going to vibrate, but because of that, it is going to add a little bit of weight to the front end. Now, we've done some other things to the bike to take away some weight, so hopefully things kind of equal out, but right when we got on the bike, it does make that front end look a little bit wider. So, I mean, we put it on, we got on, we're like, whoa, these bikes feel so much bigger. After maybe like 10 miles, that never crossed our mind again. Now it's just another big dirt bike. But right at the beginning, it was like, whoa, this is a little bit different than just having that light and tight unit on there. Another thing to mention is that the GPS mount doesn't come with the tower. Now, the $1,600 that I mentioned earlier does include the GPS mount in that price, but when you order the tower, make sure to order the GPS mount with it if you want it, because if you don't, it's not going to get sent. This happened to Callie and I. So when we ordered them, we then had to pay for more shipping from Holland to get the GPS mounts. Nice thing about the GPS mount is that it is made for a Garmin device, so the Zumo easily bolts right onto it with the bolt pattern that they provide. You can see that we have the Trailtech Voyager Pros mounted on our handlebars. If we wanted to move these to the GPS mount, the bolt pattern that's provided does accept both this Garmin as well as the Trailtech. It's kind of a standard bolting pattern that they've included with that GPS mount. On the side of the rally tower, I also wired in 2 USB ports on this side, and then on this side, it's just a standard 12-volt socket. Now, the holes were already provided from Nomad ADV, and all I did was pick up those accessories and mount them into it and then wire it into the bike. Again, this rally tower is made by Nomad ADV out of Holland. If you're looking for a few extra options for better lighting or more mounting options for a GPS, aftermarket switches, or aftermarket 12-volt accessories, then look no further than this rally tower. It'll do all of it and give your bike that extra styling that it deserves. Thanks again for watching. If you're wondering where we are or what we're up to, or if you want to follow along on some adventures, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Adventure Rig. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig.